In this video, I am working with the INKTENSE blocks again, and I had an idea where I was just going to not activate all of the pigment that I put down and do it in a way where I was getting some other shapes within the pigment that I already put down. So I think I'm only using about 3 or 4 colors, and I'm trying to be super expressive and loose. And a lot of times when I'm doing these in my sketchbook, I'm really just trying to, I have this idea and I want to see if it will work as far as the materials, not so much the results or the outcome, but what I'm trying to see if these things can do. So for this one, again, I just wanted to see if I could get some of the shapes to come out within the pigment that I already laid down without actually drawing the shapes in first. So yeah, you'll see what I mean. I'm laying down a lot of pigment. Right now I'm just putting some lines down, but I go in here in a minute and I use the side of the INKTENSE block as if it were a pastel. And I get a lot of really scribbly and chalk-like marks, the kind that you'd see if you turned one on its side and just dragged it across the paper. It kind of leaves these really, just really textured marks. So I'm also using pencils to go in and do the smaller areas, just to get some more defined lines in the pupils and the irises. So the colors I'm pretty sure I used are deep indigo, especially with the pencil. Bright blue, I think, was the name of the color that I used to do the larger strokes. And there's a brown in here called Baked Earth that I just kind of went around the nose and the eyes and used. And oh yeah, I used a little bit of red for the lips, so I think that was poppy red. And then the pencil that I have for the red is called Shiraz. It's like a wine color, whereas the poppy red is more of a warm red. So yeah, here's where I'm doing those really broad strokes with the side of the little block. A lot of these were really broken when I got them, so it's really hard to use the tiny broken pieces for anything other than this, what I'm doing here. And this same little piece here I'm going to use later to do some taking the pigment straight with the brush, the wet brush. Yeah, I would assume you could probably glue these back together with water, but they're still always going to be weak in the spots where they were broken, so I'm really just trying to use them the same as I would if they were pastels. But the texture of them is a little bit different to hold, and they don't drag on the paper, or I should say glide on the paper as good as pastels do. They more or less drag, and they want to stick as you're dragging them, so they're kind of a little bit harder to use in that way. And I think this is the Baked Earth color. I'm just going around and adding that into this darker color so that when I activate it, it will just kind of melt together with those two colors. So this paper isn't really meant for using with water, but I'm not using a lot of water in this, and the water that I'm using to put these little flower shapes in is from this very like flat synthetic brush that doesn't really hold a lot of water anyway, so I'm really trying to not make puddles with this paper since it's not watercolor paper. I want to try this same thing on watercolor paper, but this was just an idea I had and I wanted to figure out really quick. So the sketchbook, it's kind of like a trash sketchbook, so I just do stuff in here that I don't really expect to have any great outcome with, but I thought it was worth sharing the different ways you can use these INKTENSE blocks and pencils, or just the pigment in general, because unless you have some watercolor pencils that are woodless, so that means, they're just pure pigment and you can lean them on their side and get these broader strokes, you could probably get the same results, but it would be a little bit less textured and more refined looking. Whereas with these, I guess one of the reasons I like expressive strokes a lot is for the movement it gives, even though it can be rather messy. But if you see somebody standing in the wind or somebody running across a field, the movements are, even though they're fluid, they're very messy and chaotic, and the texture and the shadows and the light, the way that it's moving really quickly across the form, leaves a lot of erratic marks. And I think that the broad strokes of things like pastels and these type of pigment blocks really kind of capture that. So this is really just water that I'm using to put these shapes in, and although there's a lot of dry pigment still on the paper, I'm not going to activate all of it because I really just want these little flowery shapes to show up. And if I used a paper towel, I could go in and take some of that water back up and it would just leave a lighter area. So that's another option, which I didn't do in this video, but it's something that you could do if you were trying this. And once the water has absorbed a little bit and you don't have like a big water spot, you can go in with the pencil or even the block again if you wanted to, and refine the edges and put the flowery shapes in, or whatever shapes you're putting in, give them some more shape and definition. So here I am with that little piece of that block, and I'm just activating it in a daisy dish and using it like watercolor so I can get some heavier pigment, like watercolory drippy marks. Sometimes if you activate the pigment with just water, especially in an area like the one I'm doing right here, it can sometimes just kind of lift it up and move it around and lighten the area, but that's why I used the block just activated, because it gives like a heavier color. And then of course you could let this all dry and then go back in again with either more dry pigment layers or more of the water activated pigment on top, or even more pencil. And because I was doing this in one sitting and I wasn't using watercolor paper, I didn't really do a whole lot of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some ideas on how to use these Inktense. Thanks for watching.